Johannes actually hates trailers. He says they always give away so much of a movie, but everyone asks for one. So here's the entire film condensed into 10 seconds. Glossary of Broken Dreams. A film paved with good intentions.
How you doing, man?
Yes, I'm doing good. I can't complain. I mean, other than pandemic and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not too bad, I have to say.
Geez, I mean, when was the last time we saw you here in Cape Town? How many years has that been now?
I think that's like 2000. That must be like early 2018.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like 3 years. Like time goes by,
Crazy, man.
especially if you're locked up at home.
Yeah. How have you been handling that? You've been doing your thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm sitting on my ass doing stuff all the time, so it was like more sitting on my ass doing stuff. So
That's cool. Just less people to interfere with what you want to do.
one more time.
Less people interfering with what you want to do.
Yeah, it's true. By the way, I can actually remove my headphone because I only needed my headphone for the fancy microphone that's not working. So
Okay,
anyhow.
yeah, that's always like that. Cool, and that's good to chat with you, and glad we wanted to do Glossary of Broken Dreams at a previous Celludroid, but then we postponed that one, so now we finally get to screen it.
It's only understandable with all the stuff that was happening. Did you actually do one last year,
No,
like a
we didn't.
virtual one?
We just did a horror fest.
Okay. And that the horror fest happened in person, or was it also virtual?
We had about six shows at the cinema, and the rest was a virtual festival.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
cool.
It's lots of adapting, but yeah, we'll see we see how it goes. I mean, the one positive is that now, you know, it's going beyond Cape Town, so people outside of Cape Town can now also watch it online if they wanted to. But it's actually quite difficult because people forget that here in Africa, it's not everyone has high-speed fiber lines. And when they do, it's costly. So to convince people to watch a festival, that's not sort of a streaming, you know, just you pay your streaming every month, so you just watch your stuff. But now you have to set aside a small budget, you know, just to be able to access this festival. And it's it is a niche thing, both the Horror Fest and Celludroid. So it's very difficult convincing people to pull in and come watch it in this time frame.
Yeah.
But now,
okay, yeah, it's also so you're doing it in the classic time frame format. So it's not that people can rent it for a day or something like that, or
well, for most of the filmmakers are fine to have it available within the period, so then people can watch it whenever they want to, because you know, obviously I guess now people have different shifts that they're working as well, whether they're working from home or, you know, lots of people don't have jobs because of this whole pandemic, so that makes it even worse. But they don't have a spare cash for entertainment. So yeah, it's all these factors that we have to battle with, but we try.
Yeah. The good thing is, like, everyone is battling with them. There is no difference if it's like a small festival somewhere or a Sundance. Of course, Sundance has more money to deal with it, but the problem is the same for everyone.
No, unfortunately we have no budget. We have to run these things on our own steam, and you know, with the support of the filmmakers that give us the movies to screen. But yeah, we push on and we push on. But now tell us, just people have no idea what Glossary of Broken Dreams is about. Give them a little overview of what.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. No, it's totally great that you're screening it, even though it came out in 2018. In fact, I guess like the first and last time we met in person was, I think, in January 2018, and the release, the premiere of the film was like 2 months later.
Yeah.
So we almost have not seen each other like as long as that film exists or is available to the public. Yeah. And the cool thing about it is, it's strange. I haven't thought about it in quite a while because I'm working on different projects now.
Yeah.
And it was fun because you invited me to screen it, and I kind of got the chance to revisit it and look at it again and just like see like how is that film that was published 3 years ago, yeah? And 3 years in our time frame now is so long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole pandemic in between. And watching it and revisiting it again, I still have to say I'm super happy with it. And I'm also very happy with it because some of the aspects of it are even more relevant today after the pandemic than they were when I released it in 2018. Yeah. So the basic idea is that I was somehow fed up with the classic, you know, like Twitter and Facebook political debates that went on in like 2016, 2017, 2018, still are going on, because the problem for me was, and I have to say, of course, the film is a film that is primarily targeting a very liberal leftist audience. It's not a film that is made for like hardcore conservatives. Although I think that even like hardcore conservatives could get a kick out of it or find something in it. I'm pretty sure about that. But the idea was always in our kind of like liberal bubbles where we talk about how we can make the world better. I had always had this feeling that people don't actually really know what they're talking about. So it's so easy, you know, like in this like countercultural circles that people say like, oh, like I'm an anti-capitalist, and then you ask them in on the Facebook comment section, you ask them, so what does it actually mean? What do you mean with like that you're against capitalism? What is capitalism in the first place? Tell me what you are against. And then they say like, well, I don't like money. I don't like paying for things. And it's like, no, this is like this. No, this is not what capitalism means. There was money before capitalism. And so out of that general frustration that I constantly had to, in a strange way, educate people about the most basic concepts in politics, or like what is surveillance, what is privacy, what is capitalism, what is resistance, all that stuff. I thought, why not create a film that is trying to explain all of that, almost like a Sesame Street for leftists and liberals, where I try to explain those concepts, and at the same time also in a way evaluate them and ask, is this still something that is so important nowadays? For example, privacy. I mean, there is this whole debate about privacy, and there's so many technical people and hackers and overall good people and good guys who are so keen about privacy. And privacy is such a virtue, and it's so wonderful, and we have to maintain it. And at the same time, the question is like, is it maintainable? What does it actually mean? Where does it come from? And in the end, for me, privacy is a very bourgeois concept. It's something that didn't exist 200 years ago. And there's kind of like this like peak privacy where people, especially if they had money and they had privilege and they could afford it, that they could have something like privacy. But it's not like a basic standard in human existence. If you live in a small village somewhere, you don't have privacy. Everyone knows what everyone does, you know. And but in a certain way, so I'm trying to reevaluate those terms. Yeah. And so, what does it mean? And is it still useful to use those terms? Should we abandon them, or whatever? Yeah. And my idea was to do that in a somewhat interesting, also aesthetically interesting way. Have like almost like small short films that are bound together by a bigger narrative, but they also have all different qualities. Like one is a puppet show, and one is like 8-bit pixel animation that almost looks like an old computer game from the early 90s or something like that. Which of course fits perfectly into Celludroid because you're also an animation festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was my basic thinking, I guess.
Cool. And just obviously, you know, just this whole thing, you probably wouldn't have made this if the internet didn't exist. But then the world would be a completely different place because, you know, like you mentioned, it's the debates on Twitter, but I guess for the most part, it's not really debates. It's more someone shouting their opinion and someone shouting their opinion, and they don't seem to meet a middle ground and kind of convince the one or the other to take their point on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also depends on what kind of social media you're using. I think it's a little bit more it sounds strange, but it's a little bit more in depth on Facebook, because at least you don't have like a 280 character restriction or something like that. I think especially on Twitter, because the format is so short, it almost forces you to be as reductionist as possible, because the answers can't even be long. Or then it's just like this like strange ping pong of 280 characters opinion versus 280 characters opinion, and then it just like goes into nowhere. On Facebook, at least you have the possibility of kind of like writing your pamphlets or something like that. But still, it's almost always some kind of fight. It's almost, there's no one is really interested in listening. It's almost always some kind of like preaching mode or praying mode or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. But yes, it's true. I mean, on the one hand, the film wouldn't exist without the internet. I mean, honestly, the stuff that I do, and in general, like the person I ended up being wouldn't exist without the internet. I mean, I was online the first time in 1988. So I was like only 13 years old. That was the first time I had a modem. And, you know, I'm not sure, I'm sure, but you'll probably remember the times when you would plug in like a strange machine into the phone line, and then it would make this like strange sounds, almost like two robots singing a love song to each other, and then they would connect, and then you could communicate with people on the other side of the world. So it was pretty early. I think I have to thank my dad that he always had this idea of like, the earlier he gets his hands on technology, the better he will have it in the marketplace, I guess. That was his thinking. Of course, he didn't think that especially because of the internet, I ended up being in such crazy countercultural things that it was probably the main reason for me not ending up working in a bank or something like that. So it's interesting that by giving me a computer and giving me access to it was not the internet yet, it was like all these like hobbyist networks like the FidoNet and all that stuff. But because he did that, I think he kind of like almost pushed me into like an artist or a countercultural career, I have to say.
Cool. And we screened your Traceroute. How do you pronounce it?
Well, I always call it Traceroute because it's about the US, and so many people there say route and not route. Yeah. Although half of them, I realized during the screenings, half of them says Traceroute and half of them says Traceroute. I don't know. So, but yeah, whatever you like.
Yeah, we screened that a couple of Celludroids back. Yeah, people who didn't get to see that, give them a bit of a rundown on what they can expect.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could always say, almost say that Traceroute is almost like the first part of Glossary of Broken Dreams, because Traceroute is a film where I pretty much did a road trip, you could say. It's a road trip from the west coast of the US to the east coast of the US, but it's also in a certain way a road trip into my own personal biography as a nerd growing up, with all those things that I was interested in and that shaped me, and also shaped my art and all the stuff that came afterwards. And so it was almost like a trip into the history of nerd culture, into my own history, but also in general into the history of what nerds are, where they come from, what they do. But it's a very positive view on nerd culture, because you obviously know that there are so many negative aspects in the meantime. And I was just like talking about Gamergate and I don't know, and even stuff like 4chan or you know, like Pepe the Frog, and to a certain degree, all the weird shit that happened during Trump times that are very conservative, right-wing, alt-right stuff. That is also like a form of nerddom, but it's not the nerddom that I'm interested in and that I want to indulge in. So, and Traceroute is pretty much like an homage to the countercultural, subversive, interesting aspects of nerd culture. So I wasn't interested in kind of like being the 100th person to visit, I don't know, Stan Lee and talk to him about Spider-Man or something like that. I wanted to find interesting, crazy, obsessive, cool people who are interested in very strange things and have a different view on nerd culture than your classic like nerd who has like a huge collection of, I don't know, you know, like Star Wars puppets or something like that. I mean, I have that too, but I'm more interested in different aspects. For example, there's a friend of mine. He's actually from Scotland, but he moved to the US a couple of years ago, and he was always interested in, you know, like sculpting, you know, like dragons and stuff like that. He was one of this, you know, like with clay and making models and stuff like that. And he ended up creating a company that now, I don't know, like he has probably 50 or 60 employees now, yeah, and they make dragon dildos, they make fantasy dildos, and basilisk vaginas and whatever you can think of, yeah, and they live a good life doing that, and many people buy their sex toys, and I was more interested in that stuff because that is, technically speaking, still a very undergroundy thing, but they have so many customers all over the place that it's kind of like on the verge of like almost becoming something like at least alternative mainstream, you know. And I was interested in that kind of stuff. So, and if Traceroute was kind of like a travel through nerd culture, I would say Glossary of Broken Dreams is traveling through political concepts or concepts of philosophy, let's say. So it was more like a more political view on the world, also from a very nerdy perspective, I have to say, and also very many nerd inside jokes in it, of course, and many nerdy things to discover. But the focus is a little bit different.
Cool. And where can people find Traceroute if they want to check it out?
Oh, I have to be very honest about it. They can find it on Pirate Bay. Of course they can.
Can they buy it from Monochrom?
But yes. So the thing is that I kind of realized that if you put something online, and of course I started selling Traceroute on Vimeo on demand. So if you look for Traceroute film, you can buy it on Vimeo or rent it on Vimeo on demand. And of course, many people did that and still are doing it. But of course, it was quite clear that people will download it and put it on sharing platforms. Of course they will. So what I did is like, and I think it's also with Glossary of Broken Dreams, I have this like fake FBI warning that I always put in the beginning of my films that looks like an FBI warning from the 1980s, like in VHS mode. But it's also like a way how to contact me, and if people download it on Pirate Bay or something like that, they have my email address and the PayPal address, so people can actually donate to me. And it's really fun to see that I think every week or second week I get a small donation for one of my films, because people see that. And there was like, it was really interesting. Like I would say like 2-3 years ago, I got a donation of like, I can't even remember, but I think it was almost like 100 euros. Okay. 100 euro donation, and I got that via PayPal, and I checked it out and thought like, oh, that's someone from Vienna who sent me money. Who is that guy? And then I sent him an email, and we got in contact. And the guy is working for some like he's the head of a really great little like boutique media company here in Vienna, and we started collaborating. And now I'm doing a magazine together with him.
Cool.
And it just happened because like he downloaded the film on Pirate Bay or something like that, watched it, liked it so much, donated some money. We got into like conversation, met each other in person, and suddenly like a whole new project started out of that. So the internet, as you probably know, the internet giveth and taketh, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's just like with, well, sidestep with our band as well, just some people that we just found online ended up doing very cool remixes for some of our songs. So it's not something that would have happened otherwise. But
yeah.
But no, yeah, so we'll encourage people rather to go check it out on Vimeo. Because
absolutely, it would be very nice. Check it on Vimeo, or at least send me a donation.
Yeah, I mean, it took lots of your time and effort and cost, so it's not.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you do in your free time.
No, that's that for sure, because especially for the kinds of projects that I'm doing, I mean, of course I try to get some, you know, like government funding or something like that. I'm not sure how that is in South Africa. Is there something like help for artists?
Not for the kind of stuff that we do, or like
yeah, exactly. But it's the same with me. Of course, you could get a lot of like film grants or art grants or something like that in Austria, and of course we sometimes do, but especially for my films, and they are also they're very specific and they're very crazy, and they have their own mind, my films, let's say it, and they are not specifically targeting like a mainstream audience or something like that. So so in a certain way, at least for those two films, it's definitely true for Traceroute and for Glossary of Broken Dreams. They were films that I really wanted to make, no matter what. So, and there were people saying like, for example, Traceroute is 2 hours long, and I said like, I cannot make this film less than 2 hours long. It's just impossible. There are certain things that I want to cover in this film, and if I just like cut 5 minutes out of that film, I would get an allergic reaction or something like that. Because it's just like, it would not be complete. It would not be complete. And of course, if you do it in the way that I do it, with a small budget, you have, of course, the possibility of really creating what you want to create.
Yeah.
And no producer, no one is interfering and saying like, shouldn't you cut out this joke because nobody understands it? And it's like, I don't care if everyone understands that joke. If there are like 2 people laughing about that joke out of 1,000 people, I'm also happy.
Cool.
But it's a different approach, of course, of movie making, and it is true. I mean, I put a lot of like in German we say Herzblut. I'm not sure if that's similar in Afrikaans or something, but like a lot of the love of my heart is put in those kinds of projects. And of course, I like when people react to it, or at least like send me an email or give me some opinion or something, or get back to me. That's half of the rent.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and just talking about just culture in general. It's, you know, it's not like something is only culturally significant if it is commercially viable. You know, like all the stuff that we, from the music to the movies and stuff that we like to watch and make and consume. It's just, you know, that is also part of culture. It's alternative, but, you know, it kind of gets sidelined and ignored in favor of stuff that is more, well, I guess, socially acceptable.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's so weird what kind of stuff makes it from the fringes to something like a mainstream audience. And I mean, they're good examples. I'm not saying that what happened after that was necessarily good or something, but I mean, films like, you know, like Paranormal Activity. I mean, you can debate a lot about if it's a good film or not. Yeah. But I mean, that was a film that was made for $10,000 by some guy, you know, and he was happy enough that the production company of Steven Spielberg said like, well, we should probably give that a try and distribute it. So this is just like, I mean, of course, that's kind of like a dishwasher to millionaire story, and it really happens not that often. Yeah. But I mean, it's always so strange that, especially I've heard that from people who are going to film schools in Austria, and there is this super prestigious film school in Austria called FILMMAKER. Michael Haneke is teaching there, and they have like they are the one film school, film university outside of the US who created the most Oscar winners. With Haneke and a couple of other people there, so it's a very prestigious film school. And I think they take like 10 people every year. So it's very kind of like elite, yeah. But it's strange to see that of course they have a certain kind of like track record that tells what we're doing at that film school is good, because I mean you see it, like the people who teach here and the people who studied here, like they win international awards and all that kind of stuff. But the more I talk to people there, I kind of hear this kind of like this complaint that a specific kind of film is being created there. It's like the diversity is somehow missing. So there's where and then suddenly you have this like feeling of like there are only very depressive, super art housey films coming out of Austria, and pretty much like all of them you want to shoot yourself after watching it. So like they're always like, you know, like it's very heavy stuff. Yeah. And there's like this like whole new generation, but sometimes the universities themselves push people into a specific direction, and that's not even mainstream. I wouldn't even say that Haneke or so is is targeting a mainstream audience. It's art house cinema. Like how many people watch art house cinema? I don't know. Yeah, but I think there has to be a lot of more appreciation, I have to say, for genre films. And I mean, genres are just like enormously great. Horror films are just like, I mean, you know it, you do a horror film festival. Horror films are such an incredibly innovative form of movie making. Of course, they are at the same time also very conservative, because you see the same stories all over again. But the way, the formalism, the aesthetics and all this stuff, like so much of like new movie making and new movie making techniques came out of horror films, and people forget that. And there's always this like strange view and like, it's just science fiction, it's just horror, it's just like whatever. No, that's where really great shit happens. So but I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, without giving away too much, you've submitted your latest movie is a horror related project.
It is horror related. Yes, it is true. I mean, we
haven't watched it yet, so don't tell us too much.
I'm not spoiling anything. But what I can say is that because we talked about nerd culture and nerds, and we also talked about Traceroute. If Traceroute is a very optimistic and positive view on nerd culture, then Masking Thresholds, that's my new film. That I just finished like 4 or 5 weeks ago and just started submitting to film festivals, including Horrorfest. So Masking Threshold is first of all, it's not a documentary, it's a fiction piece, but it's also very nerdy, and it's almost like it's the negative, the dark side of nerd culture. So if obsessiveness and kind of like not being interested in the world anymore, but just kind of like almost only focusing on one specific aspect of the world, or on one specific worldview, or one specific thing that you try to focus on, like how bad can that go? So that is Masking Threshold. It's pretty much like it's a film about a nerd going down like an interesting, very dark, very horrifying rabbit hole.
Cool.
Nice, man. I'm not saying more.
Yeah, cool. Then we're looking forward to watching it, and we'll have it at the Horrorfest in the Halloween season. But cool, man.
That would be great. When is Horrorfest, by the way?
It's over Halloween, so it's the last week of October into the first week of November.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds great.
About 10 days. But Jan, I mean, last time we chatted about, I don't know, we still have to do something as well. I don't know, between here and there, us.
Yeah.
We will.
At some point, I have to bring you guys over to Vienna, you know, like for a residency or something like that, or like do something, or like it has to happen. There has to be more. I mean, we're in the same time zone, just like so far away, but we just like we'll do that.
Yeah. Excellent.
But it's really like, when I came to Cape Town the first time, like 3 years ago, I could not believe that I just got off a plane and being in a plane for 10 hours or something like that, and I didn't have jet lag.
Yeah.
It was just like,
down.
It's just like straight down. It's just like, it's on the other side of the fucking planet, but it's the same time. Jesus Christ.
That's cool. Hey, Johannes, thanks so much for the chat, man. But
Absolutely.
We'll speak again. And are you working on anything at the moment?
Well, there is, at the moment, I'm most, like, I would say like 70% of my time is promoting the horror film because it just came out and I'm sending it to film festivals and journalists and stuff like that. And there is another film that I started working on last year. That's a documentary. It's a documentary that's dealing also with kind of like a nerdy subject, but it's more. I don't want to spoil too much about that one. Yeah. Next time we talk, I'll tell you more about that.
Oh man! Right. Anyway, people are Glossary of Broken Dreams. It's streaming at labehomescreen.co.za, and we've got two cinema screenings happening as well that people can check out.
Oh, wonderful!
At Celludroid.net. Cool,
Absolutely, yeah. I hope I'm not confusing people too much, but tell them if they have questions or something, they just like send me an email or drop me a message or something.
Yeah, we'll stick your email address on the screen.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Keep well.
Bye bye.
Cheers.